The biggest mistake that this man made was steering the wheel too much to the right, eventually leading to a sinking ship that took the lives of hundreds of high school students. The Sewol Ferry tragedy was the deadliest ferry disaster in South Korea that occurred in the morning of April 16, 2014. Most of the passengers were high school students who were going on a field trip. But one thing that sparked controversies was that the captain of the ship actually ran away, leaving those poor kids sinking to their deaths along with the ship. The MV Sewol is a ferry ship that started its operation on March 15, 2013. This ship brought its passengers from the city of Incheon to Jeju Island in South Korea. Each one-way voyage of these trips took around 13 hours to complete, and this went on for 3 round trips per week. Until the day of the incident, it has been suspected that the ship has made a total of 241 round trips. But some displeasing circumstances started surfacing just a day before the accident happened that signaled something terrible might be about to happen. So on April 15, 2014, Sewol was set to leave the Incheon port towards Jeju at 6:30 p.m. There were a total of 443 passengers, which included 325 students from Danwell High School who were going on a field trip. Among the 33 crew members was 69-year-old Captain Lee Jun-suk, who was actually appointed to replace the regular captain. But that wasn't the main concern of this whole trip. Sewol was carrying a total of 2,147 tons of cargo, including 185 cars, when she was only allowed to have 987 tons maximum. Not only that, the Incheon Vessel Traffic Service had also issued a low visibility warning because of a fog. However, that warning was then shortly removed and the ship was allowed to depart. On April 16, 2014, the ship was halfway in her journey and there was a switch of teams as the ship's security officer or the third mate Park Han-kyul and helmsman Cho Jun-ki took over the ship. At this time, the conditions were all fine, like it was really good. Breakfast was being served in the cafeteria, some students were seen talking and having a laugh at the deck. There's even this one guy who went up to the deck just to smoke some cigarettes. But none of them were actually aware of the danger they were about to face, because when the ship entered the Mangle Channel, the ocean currents were quite strong, and usually you would see some rock hazards and shallow waters when you pass this route, but this time they were nowhere to be seen. And that's when they immediately realized that they might have gone the wrong path, and what they did next turned everything upside down for everyone on the ship. So Park and Cho were standing near the ship's wheel at the bridge when Park ordered Cho to change the direction of the ship. The ship was going at the course of 135 degrees and they wanted to switch it to 140 degrees. But here's where it went strange, because Park and Cho both told 2 stories that contradicted each other. Park said that she had ordered Cho to change the course of the ship further to 145 degrees, and when they saw that the ship started to crook heavily towards the right, Park told Cho to swing the wheel to the left. However, she had heard Cho saying that the wheel wasn't working, and that was when the ship started sinking. On the other hand, Cho's testimony argued that he didn't get an order to change the course of the ship to 145 degrees because it was already tilting towards the right even when he was holding onto the wheel. It was at this moment that Cho followed Park's order to move the wheel to the opposite direction, and the ship's direction was changed to 15 degrees to the left. So because there were 2 conflicting narratives, the court came out with the conclusion that Cho's steering is what caused the ship to sink. So here's what allegedly happened. Park ordered Cho to make a turn 145 degrees to the right, and Cho did just as Park told him. But he realized that the ship was turning faster than he expected, so he tried to swing the wheel to the left, hoping to turn it around. However, at the same time, Sewol heard Park tell him to move the wheel to the opposite direction when he was going to the left. So Sewol again did as he was told and moved the ship to the right when Park actually meant to go left. Because of this, the ship rapidly turned and it started tilting towards the right. Now, because of the rapid turn, the ship actually made a slight rotation 22 degrees for 20 seconds, and because the ship was heavily occupied with more than 2,000 tons of cargo, some of them actually started to move to one side of the ship, which made it difficult to gather enough force to keep the ship stable. And this proved to be a big hit for everyone on board, because this tilting position allowed water to enter the ship to the side door of the cargo loading bay and the car entrance, and all the people on the ship started panicking. Some of the crew members who were sleeping, including Captain Lee, were immediately awakened and went to check on the bridge. Meanwhile, Sewol stopped the engine and tried to make an evacuation call to the assistant engineer, while Park was crying because she was shocked by the student accident. And then the lights on the ship went off, which made the situation a lot worse. But all the passengers were actually obedient as they followed all the instructions from the announcement party. Like, they were told to stay put and not make any movements because it could be dangerous. Some who didn't actually crawled their way onto the top of the ship or jumped into the water. Some alleged calls and mobile phone messages made by the passengers, including some of the students and teachers, were actually retrieved and surfaced online. To be honest, these messages were pretty much heartbreaking. Eventually, rescue operations were launched, and by April 17, 2014, 179 people had been rescued, including 22 crew members, some of which were responsible for the navigation. Meanwhile, as of July 23, 2014, it had been confirmed that this deadly tragedy had claimed the lives of 294 people, with 10 missing. Search operations, which were launched on March 22, 2017 and ended on October 19, 2018, helped in discovering and retrieving more bodies, though 5 were still missing, including 16-year-old Danwell students Nam Hyun Cho and Park Young-in, 57-year-old teacher Yang Seung-jin, and 48-year-old father and 6-year-old son passengers Kwon Jae-kyun and Kwon Hyo-kyu. Now, here's the unsettling thing though, is that while the passengers were staying put inside the ship just as instructed, the crew members of the ship, including Captain Lee, actually abandoned the ship. Like, what's going on? Imagine having zero sense of responsibility to save yourself when your passengers stayed to their deaths. Ultimately, by April 26, 2014, Captain Lee, John Shook, helmsman, third mate, and all the crew members responsible for the navigation were arrested with suspicions of negligence and manslaughter. Captain Lee would then be found guilty of murder, and he was sentenced to life in prison, while the other crew members had their murder conviction overturned, so they only got 10 to 12 years in prison. Meanwhile, this tragedy sparked lots of reactions from various parties, including the impeachment of President Park due to criticism as to how she handled the disaster. Prime Minister Jong Hong-won claimed responsibility for the disaster and made his resignation. While the vice president of the Danwell High School, Kang Min-kyu, who was on the ship during the disaster and was rescued, actually committed suicide 2 days later by hanging. A note was found in his wallet saying, "Surviving alone is too painful when 200 lives are unaccounted for. I take full responsibility."